Neat fight coming up this weekend at bantamweight. We have Julija Avila, the raging Panda, who has recently found a new home with a new gym. She's going to be taking on Lithuania's Julija Stoliarenko, who you most likely remember from, well, about a month ago when she unfortunately fainted on the scale. Not once, but twice, and really kind of sketchy that the commission even let it happen. Well, twice, but they did. And if you go back through it, we'll give credit where credit's due. Julija Stoliarenko hit up her Instagram right after the fact. She said, listen, guys, it was unfortunate. The weight was falling off. Like, she didn't have a hard time making the weight. The trouble for her was she made the weight too early in the morning, but then you can't rehydrate. You can't do anything. You made weight at 5. You got to weigh in at 9, so you just kind of wait around totally gaunt and such, and really it just didn't work out for her. But she said that it was the best shape she's ever been in her entire life. Now, could she be blowing smoke up our rear ends? Maybe, but Julija Stoliarenko back out here again to take on Julija Avila. And Matt, ultimately, skill for skill, these are the same two fighters. Let's throw it on back to the original video. We'll update you with the new odds, and we'll have a bit more of a dynamic conversation about what happened after the weigh-ins. Julija Stoliarenko, and Matt, we don't have a ton of Lithuanian fighters in the UFC, so you get excited about it. And for her UFC debut, it almost seemed like she was this dark horse that never really was in the women's bantamweight division. And I say that because she matched up against Yana Kunitskaya, and the line was fairly close. Like, she was a plus, 155, 165? Like, there was a lot of respect on Julija Stoliarenko's name. And if you have a look at the record, I mean, yes, she was on The Ultimate Fighter Season 28. She lost to Penny Kanzad. She made it to the finale to fight Leah Letza and lost by split decision. Insert the graphic because, listen, if you type in Julija Stoliarenko right now on Google, the first picture is a picture of Leah Letza, and that's just a problem because we got to get over that. Since then, she went on a tidy little win streak, won 5 fights in a row. You look at it. Armbar, 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 armbar. And we're talking sub-minute armbars. And if you want to see a disgusting fight, go watch her fight in Invicta FC Phoenix Series 3 for the bantamweight title. She took on Lisa Verzosa. What a disgusting double of cuts. Oh my gosh. Poor Lisa Verzosa. But a great fight. Like, if you liked Ross Houston when he took on one tough out Nicolas Dalby, the Verzosa-Stoliarenko fight was for you. The reason why I want to put a lot of weight onto that one is because Julija Stoliarenko is mostly known for her throws and her jiu-jitsu. You see that from all those armbar finishes. But the real X factor about Stoliarenko is the fact that from 2017 to about 2019, she was in the art of not just 8 limbs, we're talking 9 limbs. She's fought in Lethwei, and she has huge wins. She's a world champion in Lethwei, and that's just crazy to me. And we've seen it where, as she's progressed in the bare knuckle headbutting type series, she's gotten better at striking in MMA. It's something you just love to see.
I don't know about that. I think she's definitely got better, but I don't know if the fact that she headbutts people in one discipline allows her to really open up her MMA striking now that she's in the UFC. She did land a single headbutt against Yana Kunitskaya, and maybe Yana just trained her defense a lot for that technique, but I look at that Yana fight, and it's interesting, because Julija Avila is kind of like a poor woman's version of Yana Kunitskaya. They do a lot of similar things to a degree, but when I look at them, they do match up physically a lot in this weight class. They are two of the bigger fighters, and they will stand a similar range. The thing with Avila, though, she's one of these classic fighters where her top pressure is insane. Her on her back is awful, though, and it's this really weird kind of give and take where if she gets this fight to the ground and she gets on top of Julija for any period of time, I'm very confident Julija Avila's ability to ground and pound her, possibly get a submission, pass her guard, and really get good work done on the ground. But I can look at the flip side of that, and if Julija Stoliarenko can get Julija Avila to the ground, it's going to be much of the same thing, only on the other side. And I hate to call it the Sarah McMahon effect. We've had very different names for it, the Louis Smolka effect, but it is one of those weird cases with Avila. And you go back to the Eubanks fight. That fight was really odd to me because Avila is one of these fighters who, if you're much more physically strong than she is, she's going to have a tough time with it. And I know I talked about the Jin Yu Fry fight. It didn't really turn out that way, but again, just a fighter who's going to struggle physically with some of the matchups. Avila will be another one of those fighters. And with Stoliarenko, it's odd to say that an MMA fight could come down to strength, but I really do think that this is one of the few fights where that could be a big X factor, because I do think if Avila can get on top of Stoliarenko for any period of time, I'm talking 2 minutes, like at the end of a round, I think she can get great work off, and I don't really think Stoliarenko can get back up to her feet. I think she has a good ground game, but her ground game is much more defensive than it is, oh, I'm going to look to sweep you and get on top and ground and pound you. If she was more sweep heavy, I would favor her in this fight like crazy. And that's the thing. Because Avila needs to get this fight to the ground. She's another one of those fighters, I'll bring up Courtney Casey again, who, to really open up her skill set, she has to incorporate the takedown. And that's the thing for Avila. It's always hard predicting her fight because it does come down to, can she take her opponent down or not? And a lot of the women in the top 10 of bantamweight or even the top 15 have a judo background. And that's what makes this matchup really interesting.
And if you look at Julija Avila, has a judo background, has a jiu-jitsu background. I mean, they match up very well in this one. For Avila, if you watch any of her tape before the UFC, so if you go back to the Alexa Connors fight, that was a fight of the night, if I'm not mistaken, with Invicta. Then she fought Pani Kanzad, beats her by decision, 2019. That's a huge win. We saw Pani look great against Sijara Eubanks, who Julija Avila struggled against. So you're excited about that one. She had bookings with Carol Hosa all day and Sunday, twice on Sunday, really. That didn't happen. She fought Gina Mazzani, finished her in 22 seconds.
Didn't learn a lot.
Again, if we're making the cheap comp to Invicta, the Phoenix was rising, and then she fought Sijara Eubanks. All three judges scored that 29-27 for Eubanks, and that's the thing. With Julija Avila, her wrestling's decent. Defensive wrestling, maybe not the best. Her aggressiveness on the feet is great. Like, if you go back again and watch a lot of the fights on her way up, very, very good. I mean, she trains out of Oklahoma Martial Arts Academy in Edmond, Oklahoma. I've been there. That's north of the city. Nice little place. But she trains there, and she is a geologist for an oil company. How neat. But in a fight like this, again, Julija Stoliarenko, you're going to have the threat of the takedown. You're going to have her doing weird, funky stuff with her back up against the cage, and Yana Kunitskaya pushing her forward. Normally has exciting fights. It's just it didn't really materialize her last time out. So, of course, very unfortunate what happened with Stoliarenko. I was really looking forward to that fight when it was originally supposed to take place, because ultimately, when it comes down to it, yes, Stoliarenko's fight against Verzosa. Oh, so you're a striker now? We know that she has that Lethwei background in her back pocket, but you can't strike with your head in the UFC unless you get lucky and the referee misses it. Now, for Julija Avila, we know her for her grappling. We know her for her pressure. No longer training out of Oklahoma Martial Arts Academy. She's somewhere smack dab in the middle between Oklahoma City and Edmond. Shouts to the lovely people of Oklahoma. You treated me well the 2 times I was there. She's now training out of Outsiders Combat Club, Matt. Now, good for her. You like to see it. But I'm really interested to get your take on this matchup, because it is odd, the circumstances going from the original booking to what we're getting now.
Is it though? Like, to me, this is still basically the exact same fight. For Julija Avila, like, I don't really think a minor change in their training camp is that big of a difference. Going from Oklahoma MMA to then going into your own gym, like, you're not making that big of a difference. It's not like she got kicked out of American Top Team is the point that I'm really trying to make. I don't look at her training, changing her training situation and looking at it as, oh, we're going to see a new fighter. And I don't mean that as a positive or a negative. Like, I don't think she's going to all of a sudden go on her own and then level up 5 times, and then we're going to be talking about Avila taking on Amanda Nunes one day. I still feel very much like we are going to see the same fighter. For me, I keep on going back to the stat I cannot get out of my mind. Because I don't think Yana Kunitskaya is a top tier fighter. I think she's a very good fighter, but I do think when she fights the top tier in this division, she really does struggle against them. She beat Julija Stoliarenko and outstruck her 41-6. Stoliarenko landed 6 significant strikes in a 15-minute fight against Yana Kunitskaya. Yana Kunitskaya has terrible takedown defense and terrible striking defense. So my issue really comes down to, I don't know what Stoliarenko can do to go out there and really beat Avila. I don't think she can go out there and consistently out-grapple her for rounds. I think maybe she can outstrike her on the feet, but this is my problem. I think it's always going to come down to the takedown defense of Stoliarenko. And personally, I just think Avila is the better grappler, especially in the MMA world.
So Matt, if we have a look at the odds for this one, they're kind of silly. I mean, Avila opened a -400 favorite. She's -354 right now. For Stoliarenko, open a +300. She's a +271 as it sits over on Tapology. 859 total votes, 90% with Avila, 79% by decision. For the 10% that have Julija Stoliarenko, 52% by decision, 36% by submission. Seem like you're leaning a certain way, but let's get the pick out of you.
I mean, listen, I don't love the odds on this fight, but at the end of the day, in the bottom where we have who has better predictions at the end of the year, it doesn't come down to what the odds are. I think Avila still should win this fight, even though, like I said, I'm not in love with where these odds are. I don't look at Julija Avila and think, wow, this is a fighter who's all of a sudden going to go into the top 10. I like her skill set, and again, I do like the well-roundedness of her game, and I think it'll be enough to get her past this fight, but I don't really know what Avila's ceiling is after this.
It's really, really tricky if you do look at her recent run in the UFC after Invicta. She beats Pani Kanzad. Wow. And that was only 2 years ago. That's a really, really big win. Then she beats Gina Mazzani. Okay, we're going down a little
Beat
bit.
the brakes off her, though.
And then she loses to Sijara Eubanks in a fight where it was just like the meme of the Rolling Stones going, "Dan in it." And it really wasn't a good start me up in that fight. It really wasn't. So for me, I look at that. I have a little bit of pause. That last fight against Sijara Eubanks, if we go back in the memory bank, was about 9 months ago. So it's been a while. For Stoliarenko in that fight against Yana Kunitskaya, you can either take it with, I don't know, a cheeseburger, or you can take it with a grain of salt. And you look at it for Julija Stoliarenko. I know there are a couple of commenters out there that posted under the video. Yeah, but look at the record. Look at the women that she was fighting. Those quick arm bars.
On the Ultimate Fighter too.
You look at those, and not the biggest wins against not the best competition. Then she goes in and fights for Rosa, a very, very good fighter, and picks up a great win where, listen, those cuts were disgusting. And that was an amazing fight. I definitely, you should go back and watch that. And then in the fight against Kunitskaya, it was just a weird one where Kunitskaya pressured her up against the cage. She was up off the mat, and then she was trying to get her down, but couldn't pull her down. It was an odd situation.
All the things that Julia Avila does well, though.
Everything out of Stoliarenko's game I like, and I like her in this fight. And I think that, again, if you're going to go with Julija Avila at a minus 335 as a parlay piece, I think it's silly. I think there's value in Lithuania's Stoliarenko. Matt's going to tell you otherwise. Matt's got Avila, but hey, it should be a really interesting fight. I can't wait for it. We got some great ones coming up this weekend. OSP's fighting Tanner Boser. That's a weird fight. In the main event, Cyril Gane will be taking on Alexander Volkov. The guy's nickname's Drago, and he's got a back tattoo better than Ben Affleck. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, and as we always say, let's get into it.